As the Miami Dolphins reach the midway point of the 2023 season, we are looking at the Dolphins roster, their injuries, and some updates on the heels of Miami's second loss of the season in Week 7 to Philadelphia.
You are Locked On Dolphins, your daily Miami Dolphins podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
All right, Miami. Welcome to another episode of Locked On Dolphins. It's your team every day here on the Locked On Network. I'm your host, Kyle Krabs, a lifelong Miami Dolphins fan, host of Locked On Dolphins, co-host of Locked On NFL Scouting. You can find our shows on YouTube or wherever you listen to your favorite podcast. Tip of the cap to our everydayers who do keep it locked in because it is your team every day. We don't just say it, we live it here on the Locked On Network. Today's episode of Locked On Dolphins is brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app. Create an account, use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Last-minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. Today on the show, I have finished the film studies of the Eagles' victory over the Dolphins from Week 7. A lot of good to take away, a lot of not good to correct. Some things that were outside of your control. You can only control what you control. We'll talk about that a little bit later this week, a.k.a. later today. But wanted to jump on top of the current status of this Dolphins roster as we get ready to turn the page on to New England in Week 8. The Dolphins will be at home against the Patriots, who are coming off of a come-from-behind fourth-quarter win against the Buffalo Bills. And this is not a team the Dolphins should take lightly because the Patriots showed quite a bit of life against the Bills in Week 7. So Miami has some moving parts that we're going to be in flux with throughout the course of the week and then long-term as well. So we're going to talk about injuries here today on the show, the state of the roster with players that got banged up. We heard from Mike McDaniel yesterday in the afternoon and gave us a chance to kind of glean some insight on a number of players, and then we'll talk about the domino effect and the ramifications and other returning players that are eligible as well. So the first injury that I want to make sure that we is the injury to Isaiah Wynn, who was injured on the first possession for the Dolphins with a quad injury. He was ruled out, and Mike McDaniel said that one will be weeks, not days, not day-to-day, weeks. And with the bye week lingering for Miami in 2 weeks after this game against New England and Kansas City, I think it's probably safe to say you probably will not see Isaiah Wynn back until coming out of the bye against the Raiders. It's just a gut feeling. That's a big enough gap. Now, if it's longer than that, it may be longer than that. But I think the earliest you would see Wynn back at this stage based off the verbiage that we heard from Mike McDaniel was against Las Vegas after the bye. And it's nice that you get the bye tucked in here. It's not ideal that you're going to play Kansas City with Chris Jones and you're going to have to find a combination, and you still have this ongoing issue with Connor Williams. We'll talk about all of that a little bit later in the show, but it is worth acknowledging that was the heavy-hitting one for Miami. Now, another heavy-hitting one, and one that is cause for concern, but is a little bit more touch and go and day-to-day, is the status of Jevon Holland. Jevon Holland was a part of the collision with David Long late in the game, and he came out and was evaluated and cleared by an independent neurologist on the sideline, went back into the game, as is status quo with concussion protocol. The day after the game, you go in, you have a follow-up appointment. It was at that point that Jevon Holland, according to Mike McDaniel, self-reported symptoms of a concussion. So Jevon Holland is currently in the NFL's concussion protocol. There have been some incidences of players clearing protocol in the same week. That is not by any means a guarantee, and from a percentage perspective, it's very small. So the Dolphins need to plan this week with anticipation that you will be playing this game without Jevon Holland against the Patriots. And there are worse passing offenses that you could play to not have Jevon Holland, but nevertheless, that is a concerning blow with Jevon and what the safeties look like the last time the Dolphins had to play without one of their two starters. You might have some help and reinforcements there again. We'll get into that a little bit later in the show. The other player involved in that collision was David Long. And David Long, according to Mike McDaniel, did clear concussion protocol on Sunday night. It just, by the time he cleared or was cleared by a doctor, it was too late to get him warmed back up to come back into the game for Miami. And then he did not report any symptoms on Monday during his follow-up assessment. So David Long is fine. So the player that came back in, and that's the testament of kind of the tricky nature of head injuries and the concussion protocol and an imperfect science, and you'll never get it right. Javon Holland was cleared on Sunday quickly and returned to the game, and then had after the day after symptoms and is now in concussion protocol. David Long missed the rest of the game, although he was cleared on Sunday night and had no symptoms on Monday. So he is cleared and good to go. The other Dolphins player that was injured as a part of this football game was Jalen Waddle. And Mike McDaniel said that Jalen Waddle was a back injury, so it seemed like back spasms. As of yesterday, Mike McDaniel said, our expectation is Jalen Waddle is going to practice on Wednesday. So that is a bullet dodge for Miami as well. So all things considered, Isaiah Wynn is a little bit of a longer-term issue. You'll be without him for a while with your offensive line. Javon Holland may be available this week, may not be available this week. And then it seems as though David Long and Jalen Waddle are fine and will be good to go against New England this upcoming week in Week 8 as the Dolphins host the Patriots. Now, you have some players who might be able to help you coming or in a position to come back and get put onto the 53-man roster. And I look largely at the defensive backfield, and this includes pre-existing injuries, because you had Xavier Howard, who did not dress for this game with a groin issue, in spite of him telling the media on Friday that he was good to go. And you have Connor Williams as an interior offensive lineman who did not dress for this game and missed his third game in 4 weeks. And you could really use his talents, especially if you're going to be missing your starting left guard and you're already on your backup left tackle, as well as Kendall Lamb has played in stretches this season. So there's a lot of layers to unpack, and that's why I kind of wanted to dive into this. And we'll start with the defensive backfield next on this episode of Locked On Dolphins, so stick with us. These days, every potential new hire feels like a high-stakes wager for you and your small business. You want to be 100% certain that you have the best qualified candidates available and at your disposal. That's why you have to check out LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs helps find the right people for your team faster and for free. You can add the purple hashtag hiring frame and your job to your LinkedIn profile to spread the word that you are hiring. And simple tools like screening questions make it easy to focus on candidates with just the right skills and experience, so you can quickly prioritize who you would like to interview and hire. It's why small businesses rate LinkedIn Jobs #1 in delivering quality hires versus leading competitors. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the qualified candidates that you want to talk to faster. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL. That is linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL to post your job for free. Terms and conditions do apply. PrizePicks, the best way to play daily fantasy sports, in my opinion. It's easy. It's exciting. It's not you versus thousands of other people and pros and sharps. It's you versus the house. You pick more or less on 2 to 6 player stat projections, and you can watch your winnings roll in. If you hit successfully 6 player stat projections, more or less together, you can win 25 times your money this football season and turn $10 into $250 in one snap of the fingers. They also offer weekly promotions that lead to big payouts like Taco Tuesday. Each Tuesday, PrizePicks discounts select player projections by up to 25% to provide even more value to you. You can go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnNFL and use code LockedOnNFL for a first deposit match of up to $100. That is prizepicks.com/LockedOnNFL and use code LockedOnNFL for a first deposit match of up to $100. So Miami's defensive backfield, and we got some breadcrumbs here from Mike McDaniel as well. And we also have some other breadcrumbs that we can look to as far as what are the reinforcements that Dolphins may have. There is a chance that Jalen Ramsey plays on Sunday against the New England Patriots. Cameron Wolfe of ESPN, or of NFL Network, reported yesterday the plan was for Jalen Ramsey to get involved in first-team defensive practice reps this week, and that there was a chance that he could play. And Mike McDaniel, as Mike McDaniel does, was very non-committal and said, and it's intentional that we do this and speak in areas of gray because we don't want to put expectations on the players and then do anything other than that's process oriented that has the player's best interest in mind. So you understand and respect why Mike McDaniel's always kind of touch and go when he's asked, oh, is so-and-so going to practice on Wednesday? Is so-and-so going to play on Sunday? And it's 5 days ahead of that. So I get it. But there's a report that's out there that already suggests that the Dolphins will see Jalen Ramsey practicing with the first team defense. He won Scout Team Player of the Week last week and had no setbacks. His return, along with that of Xavier Howard, who seemed close to playing against the Philadelphia Eagles, and they certainly could have used both of those corners to try to contain as best as they can A.J. Brown, make a huge difference in the secondary. And if you are going to absorb the absence of Javon Holland, if Javon Holland does not work his way through concussion protocol, I cannot think of a better way to do it than to welcome back Jalen Ramsey and Xavier Howard and completely change your starting perimeter quarterback situation by adding two new players who are both former Pro Bowl, all-pro caliber players. That's on the table this week. Will it happen? Don't hold your breath, right? Like, don't get your expectations up. Expect this team to continue to be conservative. They feel like they do have wiggle room. They do continue to look at this season through a long-term view, long-term scope, and big picture. But yeah, there's a chance that Howard and Ramsey make their combo debut against New England, and that, in my mind, would be a massive game changer for what we want this Dolphins team to be, what we expect this Dolphins team to be capable of, and to help mitigate the absence of Javon Holland. Now, even if Javon Holland doesn't play, that doesn't necessarily mean that Brandon Jones will automatically get tapped in either. What is the status of Nick Needham? Nick Needham was on the PUP, working his way back from an Achilles injury last season. He's been practicing the last few weeks. He was listed as a full participant last week in practice on Friday, and he was not activated. The Dolphins did not open a roster spot in time. They gave the roster spot that was available to them to Jeff Wilson. Nick Needham, from what I understand, has been getting time, not just practicing at corner, but also getting some time practicing at safety. Could Nick Needham be a candidate to step into a role? And Nick Needham had done that for the Dolphins in the past few years. Was it the rousing success as what he showcased in the nickel? No. But the big question, the big concern is there's so much communication that's required, and this is a back-to-front oriented defense. Who, between the ears, gives you the best chance to execute at a high level and get the calls right and not have assignment busts and give up a bunch of explosive plays? And if that's Nick Needham and he's healthy and ready to go, then let's go. And Brandon Jones should also be preparing this week in accordance as though he's going to be a starter as well. So you might have three guys back there. It might be Javon Holland. It might be Nick Needham. It might be Brandon Jones, but they'll have options depending on how things unfold. And it is a storyline that I am especially interested to watch. And you will continue to see the Dolphins chasing, getting everybody on the field and right at the same time. Of course, the cruel twist is, we might get Jalen Ramsey back this week. Hey, by the way, Javon Holland in concussion protocol. And obviously we're hoping for the best for Javon and that he gets back to 100% as soon as possible. But all things considered, you're creeping towards this week 10 bye. And that, for me, I think is finding the right risks to take between now and then to try to win the next two games. And they're both winnable games. Obviously, you're at home for New England. And if you win that one and you're 6-2, I'd be feeling good going into Kansas City or going out of the Kansas City game so long as you don't get waxed. Now, I would want to win the game because the Dolphins, if they win the next two games, they'll go into the bye week as the number one seed in the AFC. Like, that's mathematically a fact. You win against New England and then you beat the Chiefs, you'll be the one seed going into the bye. And you will have your hallmark victory, not at home against a good team. But let's worry about the Patriots this week. And that's why it's kind of a gut punch to find out that the secondary is going to be in transition because the Bills' injuries of their own showcase that New England's got some life to them, and they're really capable of mixing it up a little bit. Now, I think if the Dolphins front seven plays to the standard in which it set against Philadelphia, they will have a much better chance to put the screws on New England offensively than Buffalo did, because New England, quite frankly, punched Buffalo in the mouth. And they missed Daquan Jones. And they missed Matt Milano. And they're still missing Tremaine Edmonds. And they're in some of these situations where, they're putting Jordan Poyer as the other off-ball linebacker in passing downs, because they are really hurting for linebacker depth. The Bills are right now with the injury to Matt Milano. So I think Miami and their front seven, I know they gave up 31 points. I don't think it's truly indicative of how the front seven played. And I'm really fired up about what the front seven looked like. I'll spoil that off of the film review from the Eagles game. I thought defensively there was a lot of good to be taken away. I thought you had a boneheaded mistake on a fourth down scramble to drop A.J. Brown and leave him wide open and pursue Jalen Hurts scrambling outside the pocket in coverage and leaving the opposing team's best receiver uncovered 30 yards downfield. It's not good work. You obviously force some fourth downs, and the Eagles went 4 for 4 on fourth down. Get a stop there. This is the only team that will do the tush push and can convert fourth downs at that high of an efficiency rate. So you potentially looking at another turnover on downs there. They narrowly missed another turnover with a tipped ball that Jerome Baker almost intercepted off of Devontae Smith, which he potentially could have ran back for a second pick six in the same game. They were really close. And I do think, statistically speaking, you look at what the Dolphins defense did, 355 yards or so of offense for Philadelphia. Pretty admirable effort, especially against the run game. So there's some good to be had there in the front, not to totally change the subject. Now, on the offensive side of the ball, this offensive line and the combination that the Dolphins are going to have at their disposal, it's a pretty big conversation. We're going to have that one next year on Locked On Dolphins. Stick with us. Perhaps you'd like to go to the game on Sunday, head down to Hard Rock and see the Dolphins play the Patriots, but you don't have any tickets. Well, Gametime is the only ticketing app that gives you complete peace of mind with your purchase. They're obsessed with finding ways to help you save money on your tickets. You can see the view from your seat before you pay, so you know exactly what you're getting. And all-in prices show you your total up front, so you know you're getting a great deal without hidden fees. Gametime has deals on tickets right up to the start of the event. So even an hour after it starts is the place to find last-minute tickets. So if you're a spontaneous person, Gametime might be the app for you. You find exclusive flash deals and sponsored deals tickets for football, basketball, baseball, concerts, comedy, theater, and more. And with zone deals, you pick the section, and Gametime picks the seats for an average of 18% savings. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms do apply. Again, that is create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off. Download Gametime today. Last-minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. The offensive line for Miami. One thing that Mike McDaniel made it sound like on Monday when he spoke was that if Isaiah Wynn is going to miss time, and it sounds like that is going to be the case, that the Dolphins will be looking to Lester Cotton, who came in Wynn's absence, to step in as the left guard. Now, the mystery here is, did Mike tip his hand as regards to what is happening at center? Did he tip his hand that Connor Williams will not play again this week? Or did he tip his hand that Liam Eichenberg is exclusively the backup center, and between Robert Jones and Lester Cotton, you have a couple of guys who are more natural guards who will probably take those reps, and one of them will earn those reps? I don't know. The Dolphins could certainly use Connor Williams against the New England Patriots, although the Patriots are banged up defensively with their personnel. But everybody's banged up right now. And that's why Miami, they're kind of clinging on to right now, getting this massive influx in talent back available to them. They're kind of clinging to getting through to the bye week and getting an extra week of rest for all the bumps and bruises and soft tissue injuries. This is going to be a totally different team that comes out of the bye. How well can you bridge the gap? And bridging the gap on the offensive line is starting to be an unenviable task, because you have offensive lineman number 6, Kendall Lamb, playing. in place of offensive lineman number 1, Teron Armstead. You have offensive lineman number 7, Liam Eichenberg, playing in place of probably your third best offensive lineman at worst in Connor Williams. I'd say Robert Hunt has surpassed him this year. And now you have offensive lineman number 8, Lester Cotton, playing in place of probably your 5th offensive lineman based off of their play this season in Isaiah Wynn. So you have O-line 6, 7, and 8 potentially in the starting lineup if you do not have Connor Williams. Now, if Connor Williams comes back, I would probably still leave Liam Eichenberg at center. I would let him be the backup center, and I would let Robert Jones and Lester Cotton battle it out in practice this week, and may the best man win the left guard job this week and presumably the following week. I would not take Connor Williams and move him to guard and leave Liam Eichenberg at center. I think the timing of the offense is better with Connor Williams. I think the snap timing's better. I think Connor obviously has much more in the way of sweat equity and experience running the responsibilities that a center has. And maybe you've been deliberately careful with Connor Williams because you've been wanting to protect him from long-term issues. But does the injury to Isaiah Wynn further exacerbate that and allow you into a headspace where you let Connor Williams play while banged up a little bit, knowing full well that you can get to the bye, have a guaranteed week, and then if you wanted to hold him out against the Raiders, which is one of the worst defensive lines in football, and get him another 3-week window where he doesn't play a game, at that point, you're looking at having Teron Armstead back. Teron Armstead is eligible to come off of IR after this week. You may have Isaiah Wynn back, and now suddenly it may be, okay, we get Teron back, we get Isaiah Wynn back. If we need to sit Connor against the Raiders and the following week, you have Teron, Wynn, Hunt, and Jackson as all starters that are back in the lineup. Is 80% or 90% of Connor Williams better than Liam Eichenberg? My answer is yes. I don't know the true severity of the injury. Well, they kind of alluded to that it was aggravated after playing against the Giants. And maybe you feel like you don't need him against the Patriots. I would be inclined to say you need to have some level of stability up front. And to roll with O-line 6, 7, and 8 in the starting lineup, I think the Dolphins have sufficient depth on their offensive line. But there's no team with sufficient depth on their offensive line that's going to roll out 3 backups and feel really good about what they have up front. Now, I'll say this. I admire the effort that the unit put forth against Philadelphia, knowing that's the best defensive line in football. They did not win up front. They were not physical enough up front. Now, they made some adjustments, and I think there were some schematic and angular issues with how they attacked the run game, specifically in the first half, that further exacerbated that had nothing to do with Lester Cotton's ability to block Jalen Carter. But passing off stunts and communication, you had loopers that were free runners in Tua Tagovailoa's face. I respect the hell out of what Tua Tagovailoa did against Philadelphia and how he managed free runners in his face and how he managed empty protection, 5-man out in routes, true drop back passing. That's not this game. That's not this team's game. And yet, if you look at Lester Cotton, if he didn't hold on the touchdown pass to Tyreek, it's still a touchdown. So there's 4 points. You look at the drop from Tyreek Hill that had another twist and free runner right in his face and Josh Sweat. Tua put the ball exactly where it needed to be with a lot of anticipation in 5-man protection. That's another 7 points that were just dropped because you turned the ball over on downs on 4th down because the referees were blind and didn't call face mask on Cedric Wilson on the sideline. So that's 11 points you lost. You went for it on 4th down. So, you could have elected to kick the 3. So at minimum, it's 7 points off the board for you. The drive before that, they had a really ticky-tack penalty on Julian Hill that put Miami in 1st and 10 on the 32-yard line. Instead, it's 2nd and 18, and you're at the 50-yard line, and you try to hit that kind of sideline wheel to Savon Ahmed, and Tua just misses him, and then it's 3rd and 18. You get a short completion, you got a punt. That took 3 points off the board. Then you had the interception in the red zone that Mike McDaniel clearly felt, based on his post-game press conference, was illegal contact downfield by Zach Cunningham. I'd be inclined to agree with him. That would have put the ball on the 2-yard line. That's at least 3 points. So, like, how different would the narrative for Tua's play have been in this game if Tyreek Hill doesn't drop a touchdown catch and if Lester Cotton is not called for a holding penalty on the first possession that Miami had down in the scoring area, which was a possession that, yes, it was a penalty. But I watched the Philadelphia Eagles hook David Long on the following possession and not get called for the same penalty. How different would the narrative be if Lester Cotton doesn't hold and if Tyreek Hill doesn't drop that ball? Or if they call defensive pass interference, then Miami has first and goal from the 2 and ends up getting a touchdown pass there. From an execution standpoint, I thought Tua Tagovailoa was the better quarterback. Now, Jalen Hurts and his athleticism and ability to get outside of structure and win outside of structure was what helped win the Eagles the football game. Tua, that's something Tua is showing some spurts of. He's never going to be as athletic or as dynamic as Jalen Hurts. But as far as executing within an offense and making progressions and reads and protecting yourself in the pocket with the offensive line effort that they had for 60 minutes, which was swimming upstream, I think it was a massive growth game from Tua to show I have to do the things that are not what we do best offensively, and I have to do it with 3 backup offensive linemen, and I'm going to protect myself as best as I can. I'm going to mitigate hits. I'm going to get the ball out of my hand fast. I'm going to make good decisions. I'm going to throw with anticipation. There's going to be times where I have to choke the ball and not throw with anticipation because it's muddy with how the Eagles are playing us in zone defense, and then I'm still going to make good decisions and throw with accuracy. Now, that's just a little bit of a rant that's off the rails for what we're talking about with offensive line combinations. But I say all that to say, I would love for the Dolphins to not be in a position to have to put Tua in that position for 2 more weeks before you get to the bye. Or 1 more week before Teron Armstead comes back, if Teron Armstead is going to come back from the IR quickly. I don't know that he will, but he will be eligible to play against Kansas City because he went on IR after Buffalo. And then you had New York, Carolina, Philadelphia. Game number 4 is this week against New England. So that'll be a big storyline this week for Miami is what this combination looks like. Is Connor Williams going to play at 90% or 80% or whatever he is? If he does, do you move Liam Eichenberg? Are you already planning on not having Connor Williams and Liam Eichenberg is going to be locked in at center? And is Lester Cotton coming up? Is he definitively your backup left guard? There's a storyline for next week with Teron. There's a lot. There's a lot of flux. And we're really close to getting out of the bye and having a lot of reinforcements coming to this roster. This is why I wanted to take the time and touch on it now as we get ready for what is a critical AFC East contest because Miami has a really good position. You know who has 2 losses right now in the AFC East? The Buffalo Bills. So if the Bills, obviously you've lost that game head-to-head. That's week 18. There's a lot of leveraging building to that game that Miami is going to have rooted interest in. We already stated one of our goals for this season was for the Dolphins to go 4-2 in the division. If you sweep the Pats, you're going to be in really good position to do that. We got more coming your way here on Locked On Dolphins, so make sure you hit subscribe. You can find us on YouTube or wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts. I appreciate you guys checking out the show. Fins up. I am out of here for now. Keep it locked in right here on Locked On Dolphins. I'll talk to you all again soon.